Married Redditors, what is the creepiest thing your spouse has ever done? Story 1. My wife was sleeping in the passenger seat on a late-night drive home from visiting her family. Our very young kids are in the back seats out cold too. She suddenly snaps up and grabs the wheel, screaming something about how I, the totally awake and driving just fine driver, am about to drive us off a cliff. She was full strength trying to turn the wheel to the right, which would have been bad. I started yelling, "No, no, no." Quickly realizing that wasn't stopping her, I had to full-on NBA rebound the wheel with my elbows way out and shove her very hard back into her seat. I managed to get a hold of her upper arm and used it to shove her into the door when she apparently still hadn't realized the reality of the situation and made another grab for the wheel. There was a lot of cursing and screaming. It was not pretty. Once she figured out what she had done, she lost it and started gasp crying worse than I've ever seen. The rest of the drive home was pretty rough. Story 2. My ex-husband had returned from a deployment, and it was a pretty rough one. He was there for Fallujah, and yeah, just tough on him. He was having a hard time sleeping and was prescribed a couple of doses of Ambien to get back on the US clock. I was sleeping, but woke up when I heard a metal shank clink and saw that he was sitting on the edge of the bed. I asked if he was okay, and he turned his head to me slowly and said something incoherent, then put his finger to his lip in a shush and slowly turned his head back to face the door. I got up, and he was sitting there on the edge of the bed, buck-ass naked except for his socks and boots, laced up, holding his locked and loaded AK-47. That was the sound I heard. He'd somehow gotten up, found his gun, safe keys, went to the basement, pulled out his AK, pulled his ammo out of the separate ammo box, loaded a magazine, put on his boots, and come back to bed. I was instantly as awake as a human can be, like this shit could go real fucking bad real fucking fast. I told him it was my turn for guard duty and to get some sleep. He just kind of grunted and fell sideways into bed, rolled over, and started snoring. I earned my ninja badge that night getting the gun away from him. I didn't sleep a wink because I couldn't find the gun safe keys, so I just kept vigil in bed and read a book, soothing him when he started stirring. He remembered none of it. I locked his gun safe keys away from him for a very long time after that night, and he didn't take Ambien again. That shit really fucks with people. Story 3. Back when my husband and I were dating, we lived in an apartment that had a hospice patient in the apartment below us who eventually passed. One night, my husband fell asleep with the TV on. I woke to turn it off and went back to bed. He suddenly sat up in bed and stared at the doorway to our room for a few minutes, eyes wide open. I'm freaking out at this point, thinking he's fucking with me. I'm trying to get him to respond, saying it's not funny anymore. He just suddenly says, "You're not welcome here." Stares for about 5 more minutes and then just lays down and goes back to sleep with his back to me. Needless to say, no matter what I did, that man would not wake up. The next morning, he had no memory of it, and it never happened again. Still makes my gut churn when I think back on it. Edit to update since it's been asked a bunch. The hospice patient had passed away in the apartment directly below us like a week before this incident, so the timing just made it that much scarier. Story 4. He thought of the most innocent word he could, and then started to creepily whisper it to me. This has been going on for years. Now he has trained our children to do it. Think of someone randomly leaning over your shoulder and whispering "bagel" in your ear like Hannibal Lecter. It only happens occasionally, so I'll have my guard up for a few weeks after it happens. Then I kind of forget about it until he does it again. My toddler can never remember the right word, so he just whispers random words in my ear occasionally, and it cracks me up. Story 5. Not my wife. The girl I dated before my wife, she had night terrors, like sitting up in bed and screaming at her sister at the end of her bed. Of course, there was no one there. The one that really sticks out, though, was the Philly incident. Earlier in the day, some sketchy dudes began following us near the tourist area. We turn, they turn, etc. It got to the point that I said, if any of them try to get our attention, just run. We looked back on that as being the seed that started what happened that night. We had a pretty normal nighttime routine for a hotel. Normally at hotels, I leave the bathroom light on and the door slightly ajar as a nightlight. This time, I didn't. In the pitch black of the night, I am awakened to her screaming, "There's someone in the room! Holy shit! Help, help, help!" Next thing you know, I have hands around my neck beginning to choke me. Now I'm screaming in terror. I manage to pry one hand loose and I just start biting it. Ow! They're biting me! Help! Ah! I realized exactly what was happening. I think by then I was also up out of bed and I found the light switch. We calmed down. What we always thought was odd was that no one checked on us. This was two adults screaming in an airport hotel in the middle of the night like they were being murdered, and no one checked on us. Like and subscribe.